Okay, so the purpose of this is to share with you what I've been learning and what we've been thinking about from both Community Circles experience and other work that we've done. That's the best that we can currently imagine around supporting community and generating community, and based on the research from 20 other places, what we've been learning from other examples of best practice. However, I'm sure, given the people in the room that I've just met, that you'll have other ideas as well. So it's very much a jumping off place for us. So here we can explain and explore what we see as best practice and then build on this mural. So I'm going to talk us through from left to right, which is the what. And then go down and explore the why. If you're not already on mute, if you could put yourself on mute, that would be really, really useful. And I think Jen's just joined us again. Okay, so right over on the left. This, of course, is taking an asset-based approach, and I imagine you'll be very familiar with that. It starts with the question about what's great here. You know, how can we build on what's already going on around Charlie Ratchford? So if we took a 5-mile or a 10-mile radius, what's the richness of community life that's already happening that we can support people to connect to and be part of? But we also want to learn, what else do people want to do here? And we can explore that through small sparks, and I'll explain about that in a few minutes. In practice, one of the things that we can do is create a community map. And because Charlie Ratchford is a physical building, one possibility is that in an appropriate place in Charlie Ratchford, we have a physical community map so people can see what's going on locally. And part of the role of people who are supporting folk living in Charlie Ratchford and people in Charlie Ratchford themselves, we can have some roles that make sure that's kept up to date. And what's brilliant is the initiative around social prescribers means that local social prescribers will also have this information. So I'm hoping that we can work closely with social prescribers and keep in touch with them so that we're mutually sharing our understanding about what's going on locally. So that's part of the ethos, really, taking an asset-based approach. What's great about here, what's going on here, and how can we connect people to what's happening and stay in touch with health and social prescribers. Part of our aspiration is to be a hub for the local community. Now, traditionally, that would just be done with a cafe or an inside space, but I'm hoping that we can really ramp this up to a different kind of potential hub. Those of you who know me know that I'm incredibly ambitious for what we can do here. I want Charlie Ratchford Court and what Camden's doing, and hopefully partnership with Community Circles, to be a national, if not international, example of best practice, that people want to come and see what's going on, or at least hear what's going on, and that we really set a new standard about what's possible in extra care and community building generally. And Laurie, I'm hoping that some of these ideas you might want to see done in partnership with where you work as well. So this starts with having some sort of an inclusive space or some meeting area, which I know is already built in to Charlie Ratchford. I also want to explore what kind of outside spaces can we generate, and base that around some of the work that's done in Todmorden, which isn't so far away from me, called Incredible Edibles. And that's about creating just in containers and it might be edible walls as well, but ways to create food that people can eat that both will serve people living in Charlie Ratchford and local community too. So where I live, there are big, actually council-funded containers of herbs and vegetables that people can pick and eat, and it's supported by a group of volunteers. So what can we learn from Incredible Edibles? And then there's micro-enterprises and workspace. So is it possible to have some of the community space or the communal space in Charlie Ratchford to have a bit like what you might be using in Camden at the moment anyway, but hot desks that people could use, possibly with computers that they could rent or borrow? Because what we're seeing at the moment is a real upsurge in people being self-employed, doing small bits of work as well as voluntary work, and what is also called micro enterprises. So it'd be great if we can connect with community catalysts, connect with people in Camden who might also be working in this area, and see how can we have this as a place where people can start micro enterprises individually or together, have workspace together, so that people are contributing to the community in a different way, not just around passions and volunteers, but we can see this as an opportunity for people to build working opportunities too. One of the things that's come out of the research that I shared with you earlier is whether we could have electric bikes either loaned to people living locally or in Charlie Ratchford, or co-ownership of electric bikes. And I know that there isn't loads of money to invest in Charlie Ratchford beyond what's been invested already. And I'll talk in a few minutes about what we might be able to do about that. But electric bikes and a bike hub might be something worth exploring as well. A focus on intergenerational opportunities, and that's something that Sharon's got experience as well. I mean, just very practical things. We're seeing some excitement in care homes prior to COVID about different activities being based there, like nursery hubs, etc. So are there opportunities, for example, for a Tuesday morning for the local nursery or the local playgroup being based in Charlie Ratchford, and that creating opportunities of volunteering for some of the people who live here, live there, who will live there. So some opportunities like that. There's things like, there's something called History Pin, where we look at creating oral and records of the history around Charlie Ratchford in the local community, creating things like story exhibitions. So could we host exhibitions for the local community around what's happened locally in this space? And even things like, could we host pop-up makers markets? So it may be that some of the workspace is used by makers. So that might be people who are getting involved in crocheting things, embroidering things, making things in different ways, the kind of things that you might see in local makers markets. And again, this is experience that Sharon's got, that then could be sold as part of a makers market that brings community makers in, as well as Charlie Ratchford makers, and sells what they've been making to the local community, possibly to generate income for Small Sparks or Electric Bike Fund or other things like that. So just some ideas there about how we can think perhaps more radically about a community hub and a space that both serves people who live in Charlie Ratchford and serves the local community. The next thing is Circles Connected, and that's something that we've been doing throughout COVID. And rather than being able to support people to meet locally and support people to take advantage of what's happening locally, we've been doing this through Facebook. Sharon's been a leading light in this, as have some of our other colleagues, Kath and others at Community Circles. And essentially what we've done is put on a programme via the Circles Connected Facebook group of events or social activities that people can join online. And one of the ways that we've been developing this is to be able to support people to think about how they can plan their week using Facebook, so they can have a good day or a good week online using Facebook. And again, we'll be talking a bit more about that in a few minutes. Then we got Small Sparks. This was developed by a colleague of mine, Carl, back in Control Days, inspired by activities that have happened in the States. And then it was £100 or £150 that was donated, that people could use literally with a plan that could be written on the back of an envelope, that didn't have to go through multiple permissions. So one of the things that we'd be excited to partner from a community circles perspective with Camden is Community Circles providing $250 a month for the first 6 to 12 months to get us started on doing things that builds community. So it could be, for example, an event that brings people together in a socially distanced way to celebrate, for example, the launch of Charlie Ratchford. It could be doing something that's an intergenerational activity with a local school and the local nursery that's hosted at Charlie Ratchford that explores a particular activity or a theme. It could be to start up 6 weeks of regular activity, again in Charlie Ratchford, around a theme. It could be to invest in a pop-up makers market. and have 6 sessions where people are trying different things to make that they then sell in the makers market. So it could be for anything that's within the principles of our work together. And again, a really easy sign off. In the future, we could use Facebook to inform decision making. So I know there are some, and I think Tesco do this, that when you've spent your money at Tesco, you get a plastic coin. As you're leaving Tesco, you put your coin to vote around 3 charities, and the one that gets the most Tesco plastic coin gets some money. So we could say this month's bids for the 250 Small Sparks grants are this, this and this, and we can describe them on Facebook, and we could ask anybody connected to Facebook to vote for those. We could also have a small, I hate the term steering group, but a small group that might be 4 community champions for people who don't live in Charlie Ratchford but live within a 5-mile radius, 4 people who do live in Charlie Ratchford, and then coming together to review the bids from community circles for the Small Smarts grants that again can come from the community or come from people who live at Charlie Ratchford's and Charlie Ratchford Court, and to vote on those. So I know that relying on money from things like the big lottery or other funding sources, for me, isn't how I want to build sustainability around Charlie Ratchford. So I think there are 2 possibilities we could explore, and both of these could be hosted through community circles, because I know that there are different restrictions about what a council can and can't do. So one might be 100 Club. And this is something that already exists in some areas. And essentially, we want to find local businesses who are prepared to invest £100 on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, or an annual basis. And again, community circles have got experience in working in partnership with different businesses, which would ultimately then fund the either the Small Sparks grants or some of the activities and social events that are happening. So, for example, if you're a knitting business, or a just to give an example, you might support us by donating £400 donations over the year that enables us to buy wool for a knit and natter group that happens as part of the community hub. And what we would be posting on Facebook is the Knit and Natter Club is funded and supported by the local business, let's call it Scarlet Knitting Company. So what we'd be doing is giving the members of the 100 Club who are sponsoring either Small Sparks or the local activities, free promotion on our Facebook group, and letting people know that they're supporting our work. And hopefully they will see that as a good value opportunity. So 100 Club is specifically asking for funding to support what's going on at the hub, in return for sponsorship, for us telling people that they're sponsoring it. And the 2 Hours Club is asking for 2 hours of volunteering time, either each month or each quarter, ideally each month. And the volunteers would then support the different activities and social events that will be happening through Charlie Ratchford, either in person or online, and that will be through Circles Connected. So, for example, one of the things that's happening on Circles Connected has been a quiz time. So one possibility is somebody volunteers their time to host the quiz, and host a quiz for an hour a week, and that we support people to join that. So it can be virtually, ideally it'll be people connected into the local community in Camden, but because we'll be working with community circles and because we'll be bringing together volunteers nationally, that's a way that Charlie Ratchford folk can benefit from a national network of volunteers who are contributing to community circles and Circles Connected. That means it's more likely we can have great things happening that people can tap into. So those are those things there, which is why I'm hoping that you appreciate that we're not asking for more money on the already tight but generous purse from Camden City Council. What we're also hoping to do is to make Charlie Ratchford a demonstration of best practice in terms of using technology, both in terms of health, so that might be supporting the use of wearables, home and the use of smart home technology, community, that might be having a number of tablets that people can use to tap into what's going on online through Circles Connected. And also when wellbeing teams were working in Wigan, Wigan was very proud of having a bungalow where you could go to the bungalow and see all the possibilities. I think the next generation of that is that people living in Charlie Ratchford will be using tech in a different way. And we may have some volunteers or co-production partners or tech champions who, if required or if asked by other people living in Camden to see what's possible around smart technology, around use of wearables, that people at Charlie Ratchford might be able to show people around. And again, while Michelle and I were working in wellbeing teams in Wigan, we had a family member and his mother who would show people and talk about what it was like to use Alexa, what it was like to have a door with a video entry, and using other technology as well. So we know that this is possible, and people are proud to contribute their knowledge and skills that way. One of the ways that we could use funding from the 100 Club, for example, or through community circles, is to generate a tech library. And we've done this through community circles in our work in Abingdon, where we have a number of tablets that can be lent out to people who might be interested in accessing the community, the Circles Connected programme. So that's demonstrating tech possibilities. And again, you know, what might already be present in Camden is some people who have a role around technology that we can connect to. The next thing is creating community circles, and that's where people come together in their sitting rooms or around the kitchen table to say, how can we support each other to have the best life possible? And again, Sharon's got experience of this. We've done this with in-person facilitators who might be volunteers. We've also got a virtual way of doing this where I pop up on people's screens and talk people through the community circle process, which is simply about, you know, looking at what's working and not working in your own life, thinking about who you might want to bring together, which might be neighbours that you live with or other people to support you to have the best life possible. So we have a clear purpose and work together to support people around that clear purpose. And this is a way that we organise the assets and community resources that are present in a slightly more formalised way, which is different to people hanging out together, you know, in the community hub. So we'd like that to be something that's offered to people who live in Charlie Ratchford and also people in the local community. And finally, how would we evaluate this? If we're able to look at specifically things like tech and wearables, it would be wonderful to look at the ways that we can evaluate the impact on health. We can look at the way that social prescribing is evaluated. I've done the training as a social prescriber. Wellbeing teams were the first provider organisation in the country to employ a social prescriber in a provider organisation. That social prescriber still works with us now. And we're familiar with how social prescribing is being evaluated because we did quite a lot of research around that, and we could look at evaluating the health impact of our investment in community here in the same way. One of the examples that I shared with you in the research comes from a place called Caterham, and they worked with consultants to establish 12 rules. We could use those 12 rules or establish our own version of those and use those to evaluate how well we are delivering this work and how well we're doing. Already looking at comms plans around the work around in Charlie Ratchford, and we can make sure that that's really built in, and of course using the newly established Facebook page will be critical to that, and using Facebook to work more broadly with the community about where they're directing our work so that we could go back to them and say, you said this and this is what we did. So the evaluation will be built on the way that we want to work. This is the 12 rules, what impact we're having on health, because we know that aloneness is more devastating in people's lives than the impact of obesity and smoking combined. So we're hoping that this will make a big difference to the well-being of people who will be living in Charlie Ratchford, but not just that, the local community as well. So now I want to talk a bit more about the how. I'm hoping that you're writing down lots of questions. Lots of people have got the ideas that I've just explained. Now let's talk about how we're planning to do this. So if we start with the people who will be living at Charlie Ratchford, first of all, in the same way that we're taking an asset-based approach to the local community, we're taking an asset-based approach to people and their lives, looking at what matters to you, but not just that, going beyond that to thinking about the contributions that people might want to make. What are their gifts of the head, heart and hands? What's their personal purpose? What does a good life look like? We'll be looking at life histories together, and a lot of this will happen in what we call the initial conversation with people as they join Charlie Ratchford. And again, Michelle has got a lot of experience in doing this, as has Sharon, and this will be part of what we will be coaching and supporting both the wellbeing leader and the community connector to be able to do. Once we've learnt with people what their gifts are, what their strengths are, where they need support, we'll be having conversations with them about what's a good day and a good life look like, both at home where you live in Charlie Ratchford, in the community, which is both what can happen in Charlie Ratchford and outside in Camden, and also online. Now, with both wellbeing teams and with community circles, we've developed questionnaires about those things because often people are not aware of what's possible. So what we've found is that the value of the questionnaires is it shows people what's possible, and it means that we can prioritise delivering at Charlie Ratchford what the majority of people are interested in exploring. So when we did this with wellbeing teams in Wigan, we did crafts events, which really challenged, my assumptions about what older people would be interested in doing. So as well as knit and natter, people wanted to do pebble painting and do crafts and create things and be makers. So we were able to put those on, and we looked at indoor gardening as well. So that's how we can gather data, if you'd like, about what people's priorities are and make sure that those priorities are reflected in the weekly and monthly programme that we'll be creating together. So we'll be asking the question, what do you want to do? How do you want to spend your time? But also, how do you want to contribute? So how do you want to bring your gifts of the head, heart and hands to what happens at Charlie Ratchford, what happens online and what happens in the local community? And that might be, where, one possibility then is that then helps us generate ideas that the person might be supported to take forward for the Small Smarts grant as well. There's a process that Michelle will be going through around this, which is called the support sequence, which is how do we support you to have the resources and confidence to take your ideas forward and to live the life that you want? How can we use technology to do that? What can we do online? What can friends and family and neighbours support you to do as well? So do you want to bring your friends and family and neighbours into doing this as well? What's available in the local community? What might you need paid support from wellbeing workers to support you to do, or other paid support that's available via Camden? And so it's thinking about it all in that way. So Michelle will be walking through the support sequence to help us make sure we're exploring all possibilities there. So as you see there, how can tech help? How can we connect you to what's going on in the local community? If what you want to do is not currently available in the local community, can we start an initiative together? Can we use Small Sparks to help doing that? Who might be interested in joining in that? So the outcome is that we have a weekly and monthly plan that people use to help structure their days, weeks and months. And that plan has what's going on at the hub, what's going on in the local community and what's going on online. And one thing that we've been testing out is the possibility of a Tuesday morning coffee club, for example, where people get together with the community connector to help people plan their week and talk about what they're going to do and how that's going to happen. And just to take this a bit further over, the community connector, who will be recruited at the same time as the wellbeing workers, will have a lead role there. We're also hoping to establish some local community champions. These are people who don't live in Charlie Ratchford, they do live in the local community, who may be a community champion for a specific area. So one might be a local history community champion, one might be a gardening community champion who might be able to connect us to local allotments as well as support us with incredible edible work, alongside people who live in Charlie Ratchford and team members. I'm really excited about the possibility of changing the name of volunteers to something like social contributor, and that will be part of the 2-hour club. So we have a range of people who are committed to delivering 2 hours a week or a month to Charlie Ratchford and to help us deliver this. And what we do is do with them also what the gifts of the head, heart and hands are. You know, whether there's a particular experience they want to gather that might go on their CV or might help them to move towards their dreams too. So really thinking hard about that. So that's how that could work with people who live at Charlie Ratchford and how we might link that into volunteering, call that something different, and the weekly, monthly plan. Now let's look at team members. So when we're recruiting wellbeing workers, we will be really explicit in the value-based recruitment that we're excited about inviting people to bring the whole self to work. That part of what will happen in their role is we'll be exploring with them what their gifts of the head, heart and hands are. We'll be looking at their work and life histories with them to see what gifts they bring. And we do that right at the beginning in induction. We also do something called Future Focus that says, what do you personally want to experience in your life? What do you want to contribute in your life? And how do you want to grow and develop? And we use all of those three to ask people to think about and to explore together, what do you want to do and how do you want to contribute? So that some of their paid working hours get channeled either in the weekly or monthly plan, or to directly support individuals around good days at home, good days in the community. In addition to sharing gifts and building community and supporting individuals around their plans around community, we will have a dedicated community role in each team. So at the moment we're looking at 4 teams. So every single wellbeing worker will be doing something that contributes to community. We're hoping to also have a community role that might be 2 hours a week that's specifically, for example, that might be hosting one of the activities or events at the hub around the weekly or monthly plan, as well as the community connector who will be coordinating all of this and supporting it to be shared in Facebook. The Facebook community is on the Facebook page is critical to this, and this is where part of the outreach and letting people know what's going on so that they can come and join us is really important. At the moment, we're only using it for recruitment, but we see this is something much, much bigger in the future. And finally, the reason why this is so important is that we think this is going to be critical to the retention of the wellbeing workers who we will be recruiting, and word of mouth recruitment for the future, and Camden seeing as a great place to live and work. So we'll be telling people about it on Facebook. We'll be using Facebook to find out what else in the community people would like to do to inform both what happens at the hub and the community events, and be able to extend small sparks to everyone.